nothing.
I still can't believe you don't want to use this app. It does everything.
It could even help you meet someone.
What's the latest news?
A new shooting, a new war, a new virus.
You know what, never mind.
Oh, you don't have to worry. This is yesterday's paper.
You're reading yesterday's news.
That way I know everything worked out okay.
Dearest stranger that I know, when I think of you, my heart beats in 4 directions. I think I'm in love.
How is meeting someone in a park more dangerous than meeting someone on an app?
He's not verified. He could be anybody.
Anyone can be anyone.
I can't.
I want someone to touch me so badly it hurts.
You need to exercise your emotions or violently suppress them.
I'm sick of feeling like this. It's like carrying around sludge in my gut.
You get so caught up in your own feelings that you don't listen to anyone else's.
I think I'm fixed. I just stopped caring about other people's problems.
What has gotten into you?
I can let things go. I can let people go too.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are so excited to have with us here today the amazingly talented writer of a movie I absolutely adore, with Love in a Major Organ, Julia Lederer. Hello, Julia. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Obviously, we talked to Kim last week, and she mentioned she would, I mentioned I would love to talk to whoever she had from the project, and here you are. Talk to us about it.
Mhm.
So, how did it come about writing this film? Because from what I understand from Kim, it's based on a play.
That's right. Yeah. So it's based on a play that I wrote that premiered at the Toronto Fringe Festival in 2012. And then since then has been in Chicago and Los Angeles, where I rewrote it in 2017, and it became the play that it is now. And that play has been in Alaska and Boise and in Paris and French and all over the place, and actually will have its Canadian professional premiere this summer with Here for Now Theatre in Stratford, Ontario, starting at the end of August. So that's exciting. But yeah, that was how the initial concept and story of the film began. The 3 central characters of the play are basically the 3 central characters of the film. Though I would argue there's a 4th in the film, which is Donna Benedicto's character, Casey. So in the play, it's Annabelle, Mona, and George. And it is a smaller story. Part of it takes place on a subway, which one of the first conversations I had with Madeline, our producer on the film, was that we could not afford a subway. So already that displaced like sort of a major aspect of the play in terms of how these people had met and the timed meetings that they had that built their relationship on. So there were lots of changes from the play to the film, which was really exciting because it meant that the world of the play that I had been thinking about and had been in my mind for so many years at this point, got way bigger. So we thought about like, who are Annabelle's friends? Where does she work? What are her parents like? Like, what does George really do? In the play, he says that he points scripts, he points, clicks, and scrolls, but like, does he really? And the answer is yes, he does. But like, how do we make that a reality in the film? And what's the world that we can create in the film that gives Annabelle the most to push against in the story? So all of those considerations were really fun. And yeah, that was where the story started, from this play in 2012.
I love the use of the park bench because it says so much about Annabelle's character that she's by herself on this park bench all the time. And it's only when a stranger approaches that she sees a handsome stranger that she sees all the time approach, is the catalyst for the get off of the entire story. I actually really like how you navigated away from that subway. I didn't know that because I've read the play, but I do like the device with which you used to get to that point. I thought that was really interesting. I also really like, and I don't know if this is in the play or not, the expansion of the usage and how how integral it is to the lives of the people in this contained story in this world where everything is told to them, especially Donna's character, everything is told to them by an app, and that's what they do, regardless of if it's in their own self-interest or not.
Yeah, because it's so much easier to trust something that's not yourself to tell you what to do, right?
Exactly, and
Especially, yeah, yeah.
I think it's just like the modern world. It's kind of interesting. I really wanted to mention, and I mentioned this to Cam. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I mentioned that I thought the movie was very similar to another movie from almost 20 years ago now called Risk
Mm.
Cutter's Love Story.
Oh,
And if you've never seen it, it's a movie directed by Goran Ducic. And in the movie, our main character offs himself because his girlfriend, who has offed herself, and what he discovers is when he offs himself, he goes to a world where everybody else has done the same thing. And the
mm.
exact quote from the movie is, "Everyone's an asshole and no one smiles."
And no one said that again. Everyone's an
And
asshole, and
everyone's an asshole and no one smiles.
oh,
It's just
okay.
very like emotionless, and you're in this limbo. And that's sort of what it reminded me of in this play was the only person who showed outward emotion that was positive was Annabelle's beginning. And she slowly loses that after she does what she does. I won't spoil it because I want people to watch the movie, but there's a lot of similar themes, and even down to some of the cinematographical choices with the muted colors. Very similar. I love that you've never seen it because you accidentally did it, which is amazing. Because I think the movie's incredible. So I'd love. I think it would be a
But
great
I've
double
never
feature.
seen. Oh, that I've never seen
Risk
Risk
Cutters.
Cutters. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I should
Yeah,
check it out. Yeah, yeah, cool.
yeah. I love that you guys have never seen it because Kim didn't see it, hasn't seen it either. She didn't know what I was talking about. Which, looking at me like I'm crazy is not an unusual thing for me. So, but I love the movie. And can you talk about like why the cast worked so well for you, especially as the writer? Because when you look at characters on a page, often you'll have something in your mind, and sometimes when the casting comes through, it's not the same thing that you envision. Was that the case here?
Not really. I mean, I guess one of the things coming from theater is that there isn't usually a specific cast that I mean, I do when I'm writing just because it helps, but I know that the characters I'm writing can and hopefully will be played by lots of different types of actors during the play's life. With the film, um, we knew from the beginning that it was going to be Anna because she introduced Kim and I. I had worked with her before. Kim had worked with her before. So that was such a clear central point. And I think one of the fun things about the film was knowing that from the beginning helped me sort of write it in a specific way that, I mean, she can do anything, but that I felt like would be best suited to her and also was in conversation with her. So we could talk about it as I was doing it and sort of talk about the character throughout, which is super helpful. With the other actors, I I didn't really know. And I mean, with Hamza, I knew him a little bit before. I was so thrilled that he was so passionate about the project and wanted to do it. That was such a gift and great combination of people with him and Anna. And the other actors, I didn't really know because they were all Vancouver based and I live in Toronto. And so, and I don't have, this is sort of one of my first, I've made short films before, but this is my first sort of foray into Canadian indie films. So I don't have like a base of people that I'm used to working with. So they were all like lovely surprises to me when I got to see them on screen. And I think that's also such an exciting part of being a writer is that then you get to see what other people do with the thing that you wrote. Like that's such a cool thing about writing for screen and for stage two, but with screen so specifically because it is only going to be that one person who does it, so they can really make it their own.
I completely agree. For our U.S. based audience, essentially, she lives in what equates to Buffalo, New York, and everybody else is over by Seattle. So it's very far. It's like 3,000 miles. It's really far away. I know my Canadian geography, dang it.
There you go. You do.
I have to. I don't know. I just feel like it's important to know where people are at and where they're from. And speaking of that, like I rarely get to talk to Canadian filmmakers because a lot of movies don't get made in Canada, or they do, but they're American movies made in Canada because it's cheaper. Specifically, Toronto, they use it a lot for New York. Can you talk about like the Canadian film scene in general? Because there's been some incredible directors that have come out of Canada, particularly like Cronenberg is Canadian, and a lot of his films were funded by the Canadian government. So can you talk a little bit about trying to make a movie in Canada and being a Canadian filmmaker? in your case, a Canadian writer?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of the funding that I've applied for, there's a lot more funding from a writing perspective that you can apply for as a playwright for a play than as a screenwriter. Because usually the funding attached to filmmaking is attached to producers and directors. And that doesn't mean the screenwriter doesn't benefit from that, but usually the application doesn't come from the screenwriter, which I'm sure there are exceptions to this. This is just my experience, but which is tricky because then you have to have people attached to your project before you have any money for it, and you have to have a really good sense, like a director attached to something, like you have to have a sense of what you're doing before you even get to the phase of trying to get money. So I think there's a lot of patience involved, and it's wonderful that those systems are in place, and they've been infinitely helpful to me with my shorts and with this feature, but they also aren't definitive, right? Like it's all a bit of it's skill and it's talent and it's action, but it's also luck too in a lot of ways, like most things. Um, but I know we are very lucky in lots of ways within that. Um, in terms of Canadian filmmakers, I think and getting a sense of like what the scene is like here, it's also quite new to me. This has really been my first year of, because the last short I wrote was called It's Nothing, that Anna McGuire directed, and it premiered at TIFF, but in 2019. And so when most of our screenings were in 2020, which were all online. So I didn't get the same sense of community that I have with this film when I've gotten to travel more with it. And within that, have gotten to meet different directors and see films by Canadians that I think are so exciting and wonderful. Like I saw the film Suze, which is I think on video demand right now. It's wonderful. It's with Michaela Watkins. Queen of My Dreams, which Hamza is also in, is also wonderful. Humanist Vampire. In Search of Consenting Suicidal Person is great. Like there's so many exciting Canadian films that I've gotten to see, and being there, I've also gotten to meet a lot of the filmmakers, which has been really, really fun and cool too.
I love that. Speaking of filmmakers, I know you said you've known Kim. Why was she the right person to adapt this screenplay? Why was she the right person?
I did the adaptation of the script, but for her to bring it to camera
That's what I
and
mean.
to
Yeah.
work with her on that. Yeah, yeah. We met through Anna, and Anna initially, when we were making her short, said to me, I have this friend who I've worked with as a director. She's moving from London back to Canada. She wants to meet cool writers. Like, can I introduce you? And I was like, yeah, of course, definitely. And so she put us in touch, and I sent Kim the play as like this is the sort of thing that I write, not necessarily as like, this should be a movie. And then we started talking about it as a movie, which I think came from her. Sometimes we remember it differently, but I feel like came from one of us, and we started having those conversations about the potential of that, and they were really fun conversations to have. And I watched she had made a commercial that involved a lot of bright yarn, and if you've seen the film, there's an aspect of that in the film. So I was like, this okay, I see the aesthetic, cool. And like some of her reference films were very much in line with things that I loved. And also just I watched the short that she directed that Anna's in, which is called The Director, and thought it was quite delightful. And yeah, and so then I was like, okay, let's keep talking about this. And so we did, and yeah, ended up over the course of many years in the end, because we were initially going to shoot in 2020, came up with this thing together, which is really cool. Yeah.
I love that. And this film is premiering in Columbus, where I live, at the Gateway Film Center on Friday, April 19th.
Nice.
So if you're in Columbus at the Gateway Film Center, you should check it out. If you're anywhere, you should check out the film, because it's one of the coolest movies I saw at South by Southwest 2024. So original, so fresh. I really thought it was about as clever as you can get. And I told Kim this, and that's why she was like, no, you have to talk to Julie. She's smart. And yeah, you seem like a bright lady.
That's nice.
Which is really
Thank
cool.
you. I'm doing my best over here.
That's all we can do in 2024, honestly. Can you tell
True.
people why they should check out this movie?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's unique and creative, but I think it has the most universal appeal because it's based around this question of like, what can we do and what do we do with our hearts? And I think in the world, it's really hard to find the balance between vulnerability and self-preservation, especially in the world today where so much is happening that makes it so hard to feel like you're on solid ground and connected to anything significant at any point. And it makes taking the risk of making those connections even scarier. And so I think the film is not so much a story about falling in love, but it's a story about being able to love and trying to be open to love itself, and how rash and courageous and messy and terrifying and beautiful that can be. That's a reason to see
I
it.
think, and there's also a huge power in rejection in this movie. The power of rejection is large in this movie, and I think that the way you write it, and I know that I don't know how closely what we see on screen is what's written on the page, but if that's the case where
Close.
it's really close, the way that you put that together is so fantastic and so wonderful. And I thought Kim's visual matched that really nicely. So you guys should definitely check this movie out. Before I let you go, I do have two questions we always ask all of our guests, so I'm going to ask them to you. The first one's
Okay.
very simple. Who are some people that inspire you?
Oh, this is American playwright Sarah Rule. I love Sarah Rule. I mean Greta Gerwig, Miranda July.
I love Miranda July.
Yeah, there's a Canadian playwright, Lisa Codrington, who I love. Trying to think what I'm reading right now. I mean, I love a lot of Sheila Heti's work. Michael Ondaatje. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. And then I've really loved the Canadian films that I've seen. So that's Fazia Mirza made Queen of My Dreams. Yeah, those are some people.
I love that because a lot of those people are way smarter than me. So it's always good to look to people smarter than you as inspirations. That's what I do. Yeah, most people are smarter than me, so I can think a lot of people.
Me
Now,
too.
the next question's super hard. Now we know you're a playwright, and we know you're a writer, but you're also probably a film fan. So if you had to pick two movies to watch for the rest of your life, what two would you pick and why?
Hocus Pocus, because it brings me so much joy. I love the second one too, but like the first one, that's if I had to pick one, it would be the first one. Um, it's just these like wonderful actors having the best time, and I'm delighted by it every time, and I love witches, so definitely that one. What other one? I love Lady Bird. It really
Yeah.
speaks to me. Like I think like so specifically in terms of even the soundtrack of it, like the musical they do in high school, like all of that feels so specific to me. And so I love the pacing and the relationships. And yeah, I love that film a lot too.
It's a great one. I got a lot out of that too because I was a theater nerd in high school, so I get a lot out of that particular scene as well. So before we finish up today, just a few more things. First one being, where can people follow you if they want to harass you online?
You're welcome to harass me online. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but you're welcome
Yeah,
to
don't do that.
follow me. I take it back. On Instagram, it's at Julia A. Lederer, which is Lederer. On X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it, it's
Whatever.
at Julia Birdwords. And then my website is just julialederer.ca, but it's not super up to date. So if you're looking for With Love in a Major Organ, withloveinaMajorOrgan.com is definitely the place to look for that
And you
information.
guys should definitely look it up because this movie's fantastic. I loved it. And once again, from some reason, well, that's Julia Lederer right there. She's a lot smarter than us. She's a lot better of a writer. Uh, we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.